Ripley Patton lives in Portland, Oregon with one cat, 2 teenagers, and a man who wants to live on a boat. She is an award-winning short story writer and author of the PSS Chronicles, a young adult paranormal thriller series. The first book of the series, Ghost Hand, was a semifinalist for the 2013 Kindle Book Review Best Indie Book Awards and a 2013 Sybil Award nominee. Ripley doesn't smoke or drink or cuss as much as her characters. Her only real vices are writing, eating M&Ms, and watching reality television.
Yes, I confess to liking reality television. Not many people do. So I write young adult paranormal thrillers. However, my books do not have vampires. They do not have werewolves, angels, or demons. I went a completely different direction with my paranormal element, and I created a paranormal birth defect. And the idea for this came about, I have a friend who is an amputee, and he had recently had his leg amputated after an accident. And I had gone over to visit him, and we were in his backyard, and he was walking around with this new prosthetic leg. And he said, you know, when I walk in the backyard, I can feel the grass between my toes in the foot I don't have anymore. Sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night with a Charlie horse in the leg I no longer have. And that was so fascinating to me that I began to do some research on the real phenomenon called phantom limb syndrome. And if you're not familiar with it, people who are amputees, or even people who are born without a limb, have a neurological sense of that limb existing. They can feel pain in it, they can feel pressure, they can feel sensation. To them, somewhere in the pathways of their brain, that limb still exists. And so I took that, I loved that idea, and so basically the world that my books are set in is pretty much just like our world, except that children begin being born with visible, real phantom limbs. Limbs that are not made of flesh, limbs that are made of some kind of new energy. And of course this kind of throws that world into a little bit of a tizzy, because some people think it's an amazing new scientific discovery and we need to research this. Some people are very afraid of it. Oh no, this is a terrible thing that's happening. So the first book in my series is called Ghost Hand, because the main character, Olivia Black, is a girl born with one of these phantom right hands. She is born without a right hand, except that she has this right hand made of energy. And in the series, the reason it's called the PSS Chronicles is because I have a really good friend who's a nurse, and she and I were sitting around talking about, okay, I've got this phenomenon, I've got this birth defect I've created, I need to come up with a really good medical name for it. And so she went off and thought about it for a while, and then she sent me an email and she said we should call it Psyche-Sansoma, PSS, which in Greek means life without flesh. So I named it Psyche-Sansoma, and in this world, of course, they shorten it, it's called PSS, that's what it stands for. So Olivia Black, in Ghost Hand, Olivia comes face to face with a militant anti-PSS group, and one of their most devious members, Mike Palmer. And so the whole first book is her sort of discovering that there's this group that doesn't really like this whole PSS phenomenon, is trying to kind of smear it out. The second book in the series is called Ghost Hold. In Ghost Hold, she thinks she has left all that behind. She's escaped, having escaped with a group of teenagers just like herself to Indianapolis, and a PSS worshipping cult known as the Hold. So here you've got the other side of the response. There's the response of, oh, this is terrible and we need to smear this out. And then you've got this other response of, oh, this is great and we need to lift this up. But, as you will find out from what I'm reading today, her unfortunate past has followed her to Indianapolis. She hasn't escaped, but she has become more empowered to face the men that pursue her. And I'm really excited to tell you tonight that the third book of the series, Ghost Heart, this is a proof copy, so very special, is actually coming out October 14th. And so I'm really excited about that. And the feedback from betas and editors and people who've gotten the advanced reader copies has really been really positive about that. And I'm glad, because I love to read YA, and I hate to get in a series where the first book is great and the second book is maybe good, and then by the time you get third book you're just like, ugh. And word is that it's not happening to my series, so I'm really happy about that. And then there will be a fourth book, and hopefully final of the series next year coming out, called Ghost Hope. So that's the series, and now I'm going to read to you from the second book, Ghost Hold. I glanced up at the row of monitors, views from cameras that covered all four sides of the house and the various entry points. Then I sat back in my chair, surveying them like some savvy superhero safe in her secret lair. And that's when I saw it, a shadow, slipping across the lower corner of camera 17. It was there, and then it was gone. Something moving around the side of the house, making every effort to avoid detection. Or it was my imagination, my overactive, I'm the only one awake in the house imagination trying to freak me the hell out. I fixed my eyes on the screen and watched for it again, thinking it might be a cloud or an overhanging branch casting a shadow on the camera. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught motion in camera 18. This time, the shadow was larger. Someone was out there, pressing themselves up against the walls of the house, slowly making their way to the back. My eyes flitted back to camera 19 and saw the shadow move across it, bigger and bolder this time. There was no question. It was a person. I switched my attention back to camera 20, peering at the deck and the area around the French doors in the back. The shadow hadn't made an appearance there yet. I scanned the security suite, hoping someone had left a gun or some kind of weapon, but no such luck. I vaguely remembered someone saying that the guns had been brought in into the house from the van, but I had no idea where they were. God, we were idiots. What good was an arsenal if no one knew where it was? What was I supposed to do? Go out there and confront that shadow unarmed? What if somehow I'd missed it, and the intruder was already in the house? What if he was waiting out there in the darkness of the master bedroom for me or in the hallway? What if there was more than one of them, the shadow I'd seen, only a single member of an entire assault team? Pull it together, Olivia. It was just a shadow. No one can get in without setting off the alarm, except alarms can be disabled. I looked back at screen 20. The head and torso of a man suddenly filled it, his arms reaching up to throw something over the camera. The feed went dark, but not before I saw the face as clear as day, barely showing the faintest signs of the injury and abuse we had perpetrated upon it 3 weeks before. It was Mike Palmer's face, the man who burned my house to the ground with me in it, the man we tortured. He was out there, trying to get in. My eyes flew back to the living room monitor and my stomach dropped. Someone was asleep on the couch down there, a dark male form with a muscled arm thrown over his face. I knew that form and that face intimately. I'd slept curled under that arm every night as we made our way from Illinois to Indianapolis. It was Marcus. He'd had first watch duty tonight and he must have fallen asleep. Did he have his gun? Surely he did, but I couldn't see it. I couldn't be sure. There was movement in the corner of the monitor. Someone was out there in the dark. I could see the shape of rounded shoulders pressed up against the French doors. Mike Palmer was picking the lock or disabling the alarm, or both. I had to do something, and it had to be quick. I couldn't just hide and watch him break into the house. Marcus was down there, asleep and completely vulnerable. With one glance at the screens, I darted from the security suite into the master bedroom and looked for something, anything to use as a weapon. Pillows, bedding, comfy overstuffed chairs, none of it was any good. But the wrought iron curtain rods holding up the expensive drapes looked promising, each one with an ornate, almost spear-like tip. I jumped up on one of the chairs and pulled a rod off the supports. Another quick yank in the middle and it came away in 2 pieces. I ran my hand along one piece, pushing the drapery material off, and the other end of the rod went with it, making a dull thunk as it hit the material now pooled on the floor. The piece left in my hand was solid, decently heavy, and about 3 feet long. It was better than nothing. Curtain rod spear in hand, I slipped out into the dark hallway and pressed myself against the wall, sliding my way to the edge of the balcony that overlooked the living room. I peeked around the corner of the wall. From that angle, the back of the couch obscured my view of Marcus, but I could see the French doors and out onto the deck. There was no one out there, which meant he was already inside. I considered yelling to Marcus, but it would give away my presence and position as well as his. There was a chance that Palmer hadn't even realized Marcus was down there. I couldn't risk it. No, I was going to have to go downstairs and try and sneak up on Palmer before he set the house on fire, or whatever devious thing he was up to this time. The guy was a pyro, a bigot, and a coward, so it really could be anything. I certainly wouldn't mind sticking a curtain rod straight through him like a stick through a marshmallow. There was a time when I had shown that man some mercy. but that time was over. Mustering up every ounce of courage I had, I stepped to the opposite wall and got ready to go around the corner to the stairwell. I heard movement downstairs, footfalls scuffing against the Italian tile of the kitchen floor. He was on the move. Shit, he was coming up the stairs fast. I braced myself, stiffening my arms for the thrust, and lunged around the corner of the wall at the top of the stairs right before he crested me.